the ground running, from a recruiting standpoint. Signing day ends, and then there's a process of going through, the cut-ups of, Oregon stuff. We watched all that. We watched all the Mississippi State, Penn State stuff. Even had some Fordham stuff in there. So, installing the offense with the coaches, making sure all that process is kind of ironed out before you present to the players, and you get some time with them, and then you move on to the field. So I guess it's very systematic, in its approach, but it always seems like there's too much to do and not enough time.
One wrench that's thrown in now is Javon moving on, and you're going to have to do this again with a new hire, probably hopefully during the break for you guys' sake. What do you look for as what you would like on your next wide receivers?
Yeah, and I know Coach has got a great list of candidates put together, and if he asks for input, which he has, I'll give him what we're looking for. But Coach Krause has been doing a great job with him in the interim, and it's like Coach has done. He's always had a very thorough process of vetting candidates, and he'll get someone in here who's a great fit from a chemistry standpoint, who's very knowledgeable with X's and O's, and who's a great teacher with fundamentals and techniques, and obviously someone who's a great recruiter. So we'll find someone with all those characteristics.
It's only a couple of days in T-shirts, but when you're judging all these new guys on the offensive line, what have you just been able to tell from are they in sync, chemistry, hitting the cadence right, all those sorts of things?
I mean, between Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal and Coach Terry, they're the first thing that pops out is how incredibly well coached they are. So that's exciting. But they're all assignment correct. But it's hard to gauge anything for linemen when you're not in pads. So I think once we get out on Tuesday, it'll be probably a little more accurate barometer where they're at.
How do you define a successful practice? There's no games to prepare for. How do you define a successful spring practice for you?
I think the retention of information in the meeting room, the application of it on the field, the kids playing with a lot of excitement and emotion and energy, a lack of error repetition, and increased precision. I think all those things put together put a pretty good practice together. Because, like you said, it's hard. You're out here, you're not preparing for an opponent. And for us offensively, it's very fortunate. You're going against one of the top defenses in the country, so that challenges you every day. So I think all those things probably put a pretty good spring practice together.
How much can you tell about the quarterbacks after 2 days as far as their talent level?
Yeah. Literally, aside from seeing Chuck throw on film from last year, when we came out for the first spring practice, that's the first time I saw any of them throw a football live. Right. But all very eager, a lot of talent, intelligent, very coachable. So I think through 2 days, I'm pleased, but, we got a long way to go, but I think there's a lot of talent in the room.
How much is there a change? Because I'm talking to some of your former linemen at the line and stuff, and they'd say you're more of a gap guy, rely a lot on power. Mario downplayed that and said how much you do pin and pull and zone stuff. But how much of is there adjustments going on with that particular part of what you guys do?
I think, looking back at the Mississippi State stuff, we probably ran more inside zone than we did gap stuff. We were an inside zone, one back power, some of the power sucker stuff. We weren't necessarily a pin and pull team because that wasn't what we were, equipped for from a personnel standpoint. But going through the Oregon cut-ups last year and watching all the game tape and kind of seeing what we do in Mississippi State, I think there's probably a lot more similarities than there are differences. Sometimes the linemen like to think there was more gap stuff because it means they were pulling, but there was probably an equal amount of zone as there was power stuff.
How much do you think the offense is going to be changed, percentage-wise, or however you want to, from last year? How much do you think it will?
That's tough to quantify, really. Like I said, you got a bunch of very intelligent, experienced coaches, and we all got in a room and, hopefully fuse the best ideas from both of our systems for the run game. And then I think probably more of the changes will be seen in the pass game. But there's only so many ways you can run inside zone, outside zone, one back power. I think some of the presentation in terms of RPOs and who we're reading, I think that'll probably be a little bit different. But I think the biggest difference will be in the pass game.
One other question for quarterback. I think it's
how many times we're going to
run? No, not that.
Okay, we'll get to that one next.
I don't think it's been 10 years, maybe 11 years since the quarterback's taken a snap under center.
Yeah.
You think you're going to see any variety in that?
I'll never say never. We really haven't done it. And, you kind of go back to it's not what we know, it's what the kids can execute. And, I think I didn't see one last year from Oregon on tape. And, we didn't have one at Mississippi State or Penn State. And I think it's, sometimes people say, well, he's 6'4" and weighs 230 pounds. You get him under center, and why don't you sneak him? And you have like 4 people in both A gaps. And you see those things get stuffed as much as turning around and handing the ball back to the running back. the mesh point when you're in the gun is actually closer to the line of scrimmage when you're in the eye and under center. So I think in a lot of ways it's sometimes semantics or preference, and our preference has always been to be in the gun. But you never say never.
Why do other teams use it a lot more now than they used to? Because the spread came in and became the fashion, and then now a lot of teams do both.
I don't know that that's. I can't say that from a pure analytics or statistical standpoint. I know when you look at the NFL this year, I think 75% of the overall snaps were in shotgun. I mean, 25 or less were under center, and I would guess the number's even higher in college. So I think it's probably more of a preference thing than anything.
Much has been made about the mobility of quarterback, and that you've clearly done that more than they have the last couple of years. When so much was made about Herbert's weight in particular, and that he came in pretty lean in the pre-draft process, he added some back. But you've got quarterbacks who are 6'4" to 6'6", and they're also in the 220s. Yeah. At the NFL, they freak out about that. Yeah. If you want to run them more, how much would you like to see them add any weight this offseason?
I think Coach Feld does a great job with that. To me, it's all about their height, their frame, what can they carry, and still be athletic. And I mean, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Pat Mahomes, you look at some other guys that made it very far, and those are guys who are beating you with their brains, their arms, and their legs. So I think you're seeing a trickle up rather than a trickle down. So we're not going to be, like at Mississippi State, we ran Nick, I think 250 times one year, but Nick was the all-time leading rusher in the SEC, and that's what he was best equipped for. But to me, when you have an offense that you're going to be balanced, and you have a thrower who can run rather than a runner who can throw, to me, like 10 times a game maybe, and that can go up and down. So we're planning to run the quarterback and making him a viable threat, because when he does, that's an extra number in the run game for the defense to defend. But by no means are we going to be plowing quarterback power into the line 25 times a game. That's just not what we're going to do.
You mentioned when you got this kind of the collaborative process once you talk with the other assistants and Mario in terms of play calling. Is that something you've done the last 2 months, or is that more of get through spring and kind of the thing you deal with in the summer? Do you have a pretty good idea of kind of how that process will work?
You mean relative to game day calling?
Just kind of play
we'll get to that down the road. Yeah, there's a process that I've always gone through. Once you get through kind of spring ball, you watch the cut-ups, and then you get into kind of the June, July period where you're prepping for camp. That's when we've usually said, all right, who's going to be up, who's going to be down, what are the suggestions going to be, and kind of go through that. That's usually in the June, July period.
What's been down, do you know?
I was up at Akron and UConn, and then when I went to Fordham and you're the head coach and you're calling the plays, you don't have a choice. And I think Chip did it down as well. I was surprised at how much you can see from down, and after Fordham and going to Penn State, I was down, and then at Mississippi State didn't have the option. But I like doing it from down, but to me that's once again a construct of the staff thing. That I also like the presence of being down, being able to look the quarterback in the eye and be able to talk to the offense as a group. So I think that's part of it too, but it's also who do you have up, and can they be a good set of eyes for you in the booth? So we'll work through that process.
What's been your assessment of just the receivers that are actually playing on the field, not who's coaching the group?
No, guys made a bunch of nice plays the last 2 days. I mean, just not to go through all of them, but they've all had their moments. But I think there's a lot of talent and skill there.
From a personnel perspective, though, you think you have the athleticism at the quarterback position to do that, to run them a little more?
I do.
What do you see from Tyler as a runner, though?
I think he's he's probably quicker than fast, but the mentality is touchdown, first down, get down. So you get out into the open and you can score a touchdown, score it. If it's a situation where you're running the ball and you need to get the first down, you do what you need to do to get it. All other cases, you find a way to get yourself on the ground. So he's a guy that can make plays by design or improvisation, and so are the other guys. So I think he can definitely be a threat with his feet.
And receiver specifically, Devin is a guy who obviously was redshirting last year after he transferred, so you didn't have a lot of cut-ups to go off of other than scout team. He fits the prototype that you look at X in a big way.
Yeah, yes, he does.
So what have you seen from him these first couple of days?
A lot of length, a lot of speed. A guy that can get open, create separation, and catching the ball very well. So he'll certainly have ample opportunity. But like you said, kind of in that Chris Godwin, Stephen Guidry kind of molded that X receiver. That's been a guy that going back to Fordham, Sam Ajala, 2 years with I think 80 or 90 receptions. So that's been a position in this offense that's been very productive.